Okay. All right. So thanks everyone again for joining. Really appreciate you taking some time a couple of days before Thanksgiving, but I'll hand it over to Representative Abbott to start, and then Senator Cohenour will give some remarks, and then I'll help field questions. If you don't mind just using the raise hand feature, then I can keep track of who's up next. Kim?
Yeah. Hey, you guys. Yeah, I know it's a holiday week and everybody wants to spend time with them, friends and family. So really appreciate, like always, you jumping on and spending some time with us. So we got the special counsel's report a little bit before y'all did last night, and Jill and I had, some time to go through both the report, the findings, the summary, I guess there weren't findings, and the exhibits. And I guess out of the gate, I'll just give some reactions and then kick it over to Jill, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time, I think, answering your questions, what you're interested in. I think you all have had a little bit of time at least to go through what was provided by the special counsel. So from our view, this report clearly shows a pattern of public officials using their power to intimidate people, and Montanans doing their job. I think we saw 4 clear examples of that in what was included in the report. We saw the Attorney General threaten to send law enforcement and file charges when, I guess he lost his patience against hospital leadership. And we saw the Deputy Attorney General threaten legal ramifications. She was directly involved in dispatching Montana Highway Patrol. I do want to clarify that Highway Patrol did their job correctly under certain jurisdiction and behaved the way that she should have from our view. But we nowhere in this report do we see what policy internally was used to decide to dispatch law enforcement to a hospital over this. It's troubling. And then we had Commissioner Fielder threaten both legal and political ramifications if the hospital didn't change their course of action in terms of treatment of a patient. You all know that our local hospital here was in crisis care protocols and very stressed during this time. And so that adds to what's alarming, I think, about the behavior of our top law enforcement official and DOJ. What I think is just as important as I was going through this last night and then again this morning was what isn't included in this report. I think we don't know what the special counsel requested from the AG, what was provided and what was denied, and I think that's actually pretty important. We don't think that the Attorney General was as forthcoming as we would have hoped to sort of clear this up, and there are some major things missing from our view. The entire interaction, any notes from the Deputy Attorney General in that conversation that she had with bedside healthcare providers, that clearly felt threatened by whatever she said. I mean, you saw that in the initial reaction from the hospital. So that's completely missing. I think that we're missing the policies and protocols that were used to decide to send law enforcement into a situation where they didn't have jurisdiction. And again, thankful for Highway Patrol doing their job correctly and calling the county attorney and making sure that local law enforcement was engaged. The other thing that I'll just say in this report, and it's again something that I think there are holes there, is the shifting nature of the Attorney General's explanation of why they engaged to begin with, how they engaged, and the justification. It feels like revisionism, where they're just throwing anything that they can as a reason to explain why they were justified. And that is also troubling. And so it's one of the reasons that we asked for policies and procedures. And it's one of the reasons we're disappointed that we didn't get those things. I guess with that, I think I'll just say that we always knew that this tool was dulled in the interim and it would be limited. We did know that this was the first time that this tool was used by our legislature. So we do understand that, the results are narrower than we might have hoped. And they would have been, I think, if we were in session. But we certainly wish the Attorney General was more forthcoming about some of the basic things we asked for. I think at the end of the day, this effort was about public accountability for a person that's in a position of power using public resources in a way that was troubling. And, Montanans will get at least the opportunity to take a look at what's contained and decide what they think. And with that, I'll just kick it over to Jill for additional thoughts.
Hey, and I'd also like to thank you guys for being able to get on this week. We understand that this should be a week for family and for hanging out and spending some good quality time. And we're really grateful that you could show up today and go through this report with us as well. We haven't had a lot of time to look through it. One of the things that I'm super disappointed in is the fact that we don't have a timeline, because I think that a timeline is something that I will be requesting of the special counsel, because the summary information that was put forward to everyone doesn't have a timeline of how things were laid out and how the decisions were made throughout. And I think that is something that we will be following up with the special counsel, because a timeline of the information and when it occurred, I think would be very valuable to have as we're moving forward. I would also like to say that the Attorney General, it seems like the Attorney General is trying to say that he is cleared of all wrongdoing. Well, the Attorney General is ultimately responsible for the behavior of his own staff. And so the Attorney General's office is the office that we asked for information about. And we didn't ask for specific Attorney General things. We asked for Attorney General office and Department of Justice information, which we did not get. All of the stuff that we requested in our letter. And it is very disappointing, as Representative Abbott pointed out, that we don't have a list of things that were requested and then what was produced. But one thing I want to direct everybody to is the fact that there was an incident that began this whole thing. What we've been seeing play out is the results of that initial incident that happened. And there's not any information really in this summary report about the initial incident that happened that started this entire thing, which then shows why there's a shifting story from the Attorney General's office and continues to shift as we move forward, as they try to find a reason for what they've done, which is essentially interfering in the operations of our hospital and threatening law enforcement and legal action throughout this whole incident. So I just wanted to say that I think that those are important contexts or important context for this discussion, that the Deputy Attorney General threatened those legal ramifications. The Attorney General also threatened to get law enforcement involved. Former Senator Fielder also threatened legal action to the hospital. And so I don't believe that there is any insinuation here that the AG has been cleared of any wrongdoing at all. And I would like to also discuss the fact that as the wife of a former 22.5-year Montana Highway Patrol trooper, I want to point out the fact that the trooper in this case acted with integrity and professionalism, and she clearly understood the jurisdictional issues with the situation. When she was dispatched by her chain of command to respond to the hospital, she spoke to the folks that she was asked to speak to, and then she brought that information to the county attorney, which is appropriate. And she followed the jurisdictional statutory requirements that are here in the state of Montana. And she acted exemplary in this incident. And so to put out there that in some way we are anti-law enforcement, we are definitely not that. And if you go back to the very first questions that we asked of our majority leadership in the legislature, we asked about jurisdictional issues. And what you'll find in the summary report is not anything about that. I think that is an important ongoing concept that we as legislators are going to have to analyze and look for what we might need to do to strengthen the framework of jurisdiction within the state of Montana to make sure that the public is protected and that the public will be able to trust that law enforcement that is engaging with them is doing so not for a political purpose, but for the protection that we all deem that citizens should have in the state of Montana. And I applaud the professionalism of this highway patrol trooper who understood the jurisdictional issues within this situation. And so I think I'll stop with that and just say, you know, I think that the information, though it is just in a summary form, really does lay out that there is a clear pattern of behavior from the Attorney General's office, from these, and the Attorney General's office is the one that is responsible for this situation, and from other public officials in this situation. And we need to shine a light on that and make sure that they are held accountable publicly for the way they have behaved in this situation. And so we'll open ourselves up for questions, just for follow-up. And right. Again, thanks for coming.
So if folks don't mind using raise hand feature, I'll call on you in order. I've got Holly up first and then Shaylee.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. 2 questions to start off with. I wanted to ask what your reactions are to your Republican colleagues. I understand the report itself doesn't make any statements of findings, but their takeaway was that it didn't produce any evidence to support allegations about the harassments, threats, or intimidation. And then we also saw the AG's office take this report and use it to say that no one at DOJ threatened anyone. And wonder if those are characterizations of what's in the report, if you dispute those characterizations. Then I also wanted to ask kind of a more wonky question. Maybe I'll ask that, let you guys respond, and then ask the second one.
Sure. Thanks, Holly. Yeah, Montanans get to decide when they look at the summary of the behavior of DOJ, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and then, of course, Commissioner Fielder. When someone suggests that if they don't get what they're asking for, they're going to deploy law enforcement, file charges, or take legal action. I think a lot of Montanans might find that to be threatening. I think this is a partisan situation where partisan people are doing their job, and I think that what's important is that we're looking at least some information around what happened and why the hospital had the initial reaction that they had.
Holly, you want to get your follow-up in?
Yeah. One of the things I'm curious about, in one of the appendix documents, there's an email, it looks like it's from the hospital's legal counsel to the special counsel. And it's saying, in response to a request by the special counsel, this is where the hospital CEO is saying that he didn't feel threatened on the call. I'm wondering if you guys have any more insider information or have asked about, the special counsel made very clear that her purview was looking at government records only. And this looks like an instance where she's asking for information beyond that. If she made any other requests for information beyond that from the hospital, I'm wondering about if she reached out to others on the call for their reaction to it, or if it was just a request to the CEO. I don't know if you guys have any insight into that, or were able to ask the special counsel about that, but was just seeking further information there.
So Holly, we have limited information that I know that the special counsel reached out to the hospital staff to see what information they would be willing to give to this. We don't have, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, we don't know what the special counsel actually requested, because that's not included in the summary. So we can't really tell who responded and who said they had information or said, I'm not giving you that information, or didn't respond to the request. And so I think that that's kind of where we're, something that you should pay attention to, because we don't know exactly what we don't know. What was requested and then wasn't received, we have no idea. And then I also want to just point out to everybody that we're still on that smoke screen of information, right? So we're following up with the hospital CEO asking him if he felt threatened in a conversation that he had with a board member of the hospital and the AG. And we still aren't back at the original incident that started this whole thing, which is where the folks in our hospital that are doing this amazing work and trying to keep the hospital functional on behalf of people in our community, their voice is not being heard. And the voice, I mean, they felt threatened and harassed enough to say we felt threatened and harassed in our workplace by public officials. Where is the information in this summary report of that incident? I cannot believe that there is no information at the Department of Justice on cell phones or anything else that would bear out how did this process begin? How did we get to the fact that we sent a patrol officer to the hospital? None of that is in this summary report. And it is highly disappointing to not have that incident recorded in some way, shape, or form. Because the transparency of that situation is what we have been looking for during this entire investigation.
Have you asked the special counsel to provide sort of like an itemized list of what who she reached out to, those sorts of things to get at that information?
So we did ask her to let us know what she had asked for from various folks, and we don't have that. So that is going to be part of our follow-up to the special counsel. Is I'm going to be requesting the timeline, and secondarily, we want to know what all she requested from the different folks during this investigation, so we know what wasn't received.
Shaylee, you want to hop in next?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for taking the time today. So it sounds like you guys are still kind of in the fact-finding stage of this. You're still requesting more information, but you both talked about accountability, holding these officials accountable. I'm wondering what that could look like and what you guys would advocate for.
Yeah, I think this is, you're right. I think that Jill and I are going to have a series of conversations over the next weeks and maybe months with our caucuses and with legislative services to try to figure out what next steps are. I think we're interested in requesting, what ethics provisions might have been implicated in this and where we might be able to go there. I think that, now that we have at least an initial report and summary, we can sort of decide what our next steps are. But the hard part about the Attorney General suggesting that they can't give over some information based on an ongoing investigation is we don't know if or when we'll get that. I don't know what their timeline is on that investigation, which I think is a Medicaid fraud investigation. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think Jill and I are committed to sort of digging in and looking at different options to get more of the information that like she mentioned is missing, and B, look for avenues for public accountability.
Well, and then to follow up with that, I'd just like to add, I think in our original request and the request that was forwarded to the Attorney General's office from the information that we provided, we have said all along, is there necessary legislation that we need in order to empower our branch of government to have the oversight that the public expects? We have three branches of government for a reason. We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the judiciary for a reason. So there are checks and balances on all three of them. We need to have checks and balances on us with the judiciary. And we should be expecting that we have the ability as a legislative branch to have the oversight of the executive branch that is shown in the statute. And if it's not enough, then we as legislators need to pass laws that give us the ability to have that oversight fully on behalf of the public.
Okay, we'll go to John next, and then Aaron, and then Jonathan.
Thank you. Sorry, going back and forth between documents here and tabs. This is harder on Zoom than it is in person. The summary talks about the fact that there was a power of attorney document that went unsigned for 3 days while the patient's condition deteriorated. That seems to be one of the points of contention that led to the family or advocates for the patient contacting the Attorney General's office. it seems to me from reading this report that there may have been some mistakes made by people at different levels in this entire incident. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on what appears to be the hospital acknowledging that they didn't deliver that power of attorney document to the patient as requested. That seemed to be one of the biggest issues in the complaint that was made to the AG's office, which spurred their response. What are your thoughts on that finding?
Hey, John. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a question for St. Peter's, and I think they've indicated that they're doing an internal investigation of their own. Our worry is the behavior the DOJ engaged in, the deploying of law enforcement and threatening legal and political ramifications, which isn't appropriate, regardless of whether there's a policy issue at the hospital. We expect for jurisdictional issues to be followed and for processes to be followed at the Attorney General's office. And, this is really about shining a light on their response. I think you could ask St. Peter's for more information on the power of attorney issue.
Ask a quick follow-up. The Attorney General has said that his response, the agency's response was into these troubling reports that they were receiving. It does appear from this document, and if the report is correct, that the hospital acknowledges that there was a 3-day delay in delivering that report. Is there some aspect of this that you take the Attorney General at his word that he was concerned about the safety or well-being of the patient? I mean, how do you draw a line between the political and policy ramifications of this incident and the Attorney General's intent?
Well, the story changed so many times, John, that I can't actually take his word for it. I think that we heard duty to act, we've heard community care doctrine, we've heard Medicaid fraud. We've heard there was a delay in paperwork. We've heard that there was a communication problem. We've heard that maybe there was a visitor policy problem. So no, I can't take him at his word on that, because as things have gotten covered more and as things have gotten heightened and there's been more scrutiny, his story's changed repeatedly. And I think that part of what Jill is saying about the timeline is that's something that's kind of missing in this summary is the response to requests from you guys, honestly, from the media for details on what happened. We saw just a lot of shifting in that. And so I think I'm not here to say that St. Peter's health is perfect. I wouldn't do that. But our job is really to hold the Attorney General accountable, or at least try to help the public hold the Attorney General accountable for the use of public resources and this kind of behavior, which was, certainly threatening the use of power in a way that I think is inappropriate.
And John, I think we should take the CEO at his word as well. He put in the information that was also provided in the summary report, that there was not any unnecessary delays in getting the paperwork to the patient. I take him at his word as well.
All right, we'll go to RN next, then Jonathan, then Seaborn.
Yeah, hi, a couple things. I guess, do you guys feel that overall sort of tenor and findings such as they are of the report were influenced by the partisan nature of the special counsel position?
So, Aaron, I actually think that she was doing the job that she was asked to do, and I believe that there aren't any findings in this report. Right. I think it's really a summary of the information that has happened throughout this incident with a lot of missing pockets. And so I believe that she's done within her ability to do so, examined the records and provided a summary of the records that were provided to her. So, I mean, we understand who she is and where she came from, but I actually believe that she was attempting to do the job of the special counsel as a special counsel and did what was within her limited jurisdiction, which was to look at the records that were provided to her, because we have no ability to subpoena. So we don't know what we didn't get, right? Again, we don't know what all was requested. We don't know all of that. But I do believe that she gave a fair accounting of the information that was put in front of her.
And kind of building on that as a sort of more general topic, do you think that this incident and some other incidents that have been in the press recently of lawmakers doing things that Democrats might believe violate their code of ethics or what have you, do you think that this could be an opportunity to take another look at what the legislature's oversight powers are, especially in the interim when, as it's become quite clear, it really can't do anything other than just, say that this is happening?
And that was exactly why we brought this forward in the first place, Aaron. And if you go back to our initial letter requesting of our legislative leadership, as a part of that leadership, to have an investigation into that, it's exactly why we asked for this to take place, is how do we strengthen our branch and the oversight of the executive branch that is required under the statute for the legislature to do? How do we strengthen our ability to do work during the interim? That's the question that we're going to be asking ourselves between now and the next session. What is it that we can do as a legislature that's going to make us able to do our jobs in a better way during the interim process? Because there's a lot more ability we have when we're in session. We can subpoena people to come before committees. We can subpoena documents. We have a lot more power during the session than we do right now in the interim. If we're not in a special session, we can't do it. If we're not in session, we can't do it. So there are things that we need to look at as leadership on how we can strengthen our ability to represent the public during the interim.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add there is I think we do want to take our time and really carefully consider where legislation might be necessary. I mean, it was one of our goals, RN, out of the gate. And so, I think we want to be really thoughtful about what makes sense going forward.
Right. Okay, we'll go to Jonathan next, then Seaborn, then Maritza.
Thank you, minority leaders. You guys mentioned that to your view, the special counsel as a tool was dulled, I think you said, and you knew there was maybe a limit to what the investigation was going to, or report as it were, was going to show. I guess I have a question then. Do you expect, what, if anything else, do you expect as we go? You're going to ask for additional information from the special counsel. Do you have any idea of whether we're likely to see anything additionally to the, as you say, you hope to see a timeline or something? How much more can we expect out of this, or is this nearing its end, I guess?
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I did say that, it was sort of a dull tool in the interim, but it's also the first time that we've used this tool. So I think that we're all sort of learning together, and we're going to make the requests. I will say that the special counsel has been responsive and communicative about our requests. So I think we'll know fairly quickly whether she feels like she has the ability or authority to get us more information or not. And then Jill and I can, based on that response, decide what to do next. And that could include going to, the president and the speaker as well, and asking for their help getting more information. I really do think that in order to understand how forthcoming and how compliant the Attorney General and DOJ was, we do need to understand what he was asked for. And it would be very helpful to have a timeline. So we'll definitely ask for those things. And again, we had a little bit more time with the material than you guys did, but still not a lot. So we're going to go back through and take it in a little bit more too.
All right, we'll go to Seaborn next, then Maritza, and then back to John.
Thank you. I am hoping to turn the focus a little bit more on Commissioner Jennifer Fielder. So I understand, I guess from the report that the minority staff had heard the voicemail from Commissioner Fielder. I was hoping you could just sort of, we don't get to listen to that voicemail. I was just wondering if you could sort of describe her inflection in that call and anything else that was not included in this report that you think is important that we understand. And then additionally, I'm wondering if you plan on following up directly with Commissioner Fielder, or if there are any other avenues to toward accountability for her role in this.
Yeah, so I did get to listen to the voicemail with staff, and Jill, you did too, right? Yeah. So I think it's an accurate summary of the content. In terms of her inflection, I mean, I don't know. I try hard not to guess, but what I will say is that Commissioner Fielder was very careful with her choice of words from my perspective. And what was implied there was that the patient and Commissioner Fielder had political connections with the Senate. The Senate, could engage in political retribution against the hospital, and that there would be legal action depending on the outcome of the incident. That was clear to me. I think it was clearly implied. And I mean, Commissioner Fielder sounded like Commissioner Fielder to me. I don't know, Jill, if you have anything to add.
Well, and I was just going to say, I think you should take her words at what her words are. It is a faithful accounting of the words. The only thing that was taken out of the phone call was the name of the patient and various information about her health situation. That's really what was taken out from the summary. And so I think I think you can take her at the words that she said. Do not get rid of this voicemail because it's going to be used in a suit. And she started out, I mean, if it was just a personal thing, why didn't she say, hey, this is Jennifer Fielder. I'm a friend of the family and I'm concerned about this situation. She did not do that. She said, I am Senator Jennifer Fielder. And then she said, former Senator Fielder. And then I don't know if she ever said she was a commissioner. But you don't have a conversation with people in a personal way and then name your public persona and use that. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think her words should be taken as they are stated. And I think that's a faithful rendition of what we heard on the phone conversation.
All right, Maritza, next. Go ahead.
Could I one quick follow up? Is the minority going to follow up with Commissioner Fielder directly in any fashion?
We haven't talked about any plans to follow up with Commissioner Fielder.
Thank you.
All right, Maritza, and then we'll go back to John and then Aaron and Holly.
All right, thank you so much for holding this. I'm just wondering, in your confidence that this is a complete report. And the reason I ask that is because I've noticed my emails were not included. And based on my knowledge of this press corps, I assume other reporters' emails were not included as well.
I think that I don't know if this is a complete, I think that this is what the special counsel deemed to be relevant to the questions that we asked. I don't know what emails you all sent, what inquiries you made. And we just have to, I think, trust that the special counsel, and we understand, that she was appointed by Republicans and works for Republicans, but I think she did approach this in a diligent way, but we have to trust that she was using, good judgment in what she included and didn't include. And if you guys know that there are things missing from your communications with her, we'd certainly be interested in hearing that.
All right, back to John and then back to Aaron.
You mentioned that this report didn't respond to your questions about policies and procedures. The special counsel stated in this report that she believes that those questions are within the purview of legislative services in the legislative audit division. Do you intend to make an inquiry to legislative audit in particular for a look into that question on policies and procedures?
That is one of the things that's most troubling about the summary, is that for some reason, the special counsel felt that she couldn't include what is, I think, one of the central questions, which was, how did this decision get made, and what internal process was followed or not followed? And I just have to tell you that I don't understand what would preclude her from getting that information that has to do with legislative audit at all. So yeah, I'm going to be following up on that. I sit on the legislative audit committee, and it's a confusing portion of this report from my view. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try to figure out what that means. I don't understand what that means based on just what I'm reading.
Have you asked for a legal opinion from legislative legal staff on that question?
Not yet.
And that's the deal, John, is we just got the report last week, just like you guys did. So, we need a little bit of time to digest and kind of look at what our next steps will be. We put out there the things that we saw were glaring holes in this investigation. And I would agree with Representative Abbott that, one of the biggest holes is that very initial thing that started this, the incident that started this entire situation. What you guys are reporting on is all around everything that's happened after that. What we haven't gotten back to is that very initial thing. How did that happen? How did it get transmitted to the AG? Where is that documentation of that transfer of the initial thing to the AG, where he took it in hand? How did the highway patrol officer get dispatched? How did that decision making within the DOJ happen? We've asked that question. We know that that's pertinent to what Montanans would want to hear about the transparency of this incident and how this is working. And as the oversight, we are the oversight of the executive branch as the legislative branch. And it is our duty to find that information and to figure out, is there something that we as a legislative branch need to do? And what responsibility do we have on behalf of this situation? And we're going to continue to dig into that because we think that's an important concept.
All right, we'll go back to Arn and then Holly.
Yeah, kind of on that point, I guess. So in the report, my understanding, at least, is it seems that kind of the catalyst, I guess, was the family friend, the patient's friend, serving as a patient advocate, reaching out to Chris Hansen via text, I guess. And you guys may not have any information about this, but do you know why she would have Chris Hansen's cell number and be, why would the deputy AG be the point person for this patient? And maybe as a corollary to that, do you think that any of this would have happened, not to sound callous, if the patient wasn't involved in local Republican politics?
So Arn, that's exactly the question that we have. Where is this? Where did this all happen? And that there are those text messages, they're referenced, they're inferred. We know that they took place. You guys were able to get that information out of them, but we don't have anything in this report that actually summarizes any of that information. And then in Deputy Attorney General Hansen's hands, where did that communication to the AG happen? Where did that communication to the Colonel of the Highway Patrol happen? All of that is inferred, but there is no information in here about that. So it is something that we believe is important to continue to work to get information on, because that is the exact reason why we are afraid that political decisions within the AG to send a highway patrol officer, we want to make sure that those aren't political decisions, because all Montanans should feel the ability to access law enforcement when needed should not be a political decision. It should be when you are in need, and as a citizen, you deserve it. And that's what we want to make sure. It is part of what we are working really hard to make sure.
Yeah, Chris Hansen doesn't post her cell number for healthcare grievances. this was about somebody being politically connected, clearly.
All right, back to Holly.
Yeah, this might be a little repetitive, but I wanted to ask, like, we've been talking about just the specifics and getting deep into details of what was in this report, but I wanted to just kind of step back as much as possible and ask more broadly just what it means to you overall the AG's office got involved here. Like, I'm thinking we've seen lots of frustrations with hospitals during the pandemic, about treatment, about just, everything, not being able to visit people, all that. And I'm wondering, what you would say is the best route for patients and families to address their concerns when these situations do arise. And if you feel this is a proper use of that community caretaker provision, or if you suggest other avenues when there are, genuine disputes between patients and families and hospitals about how to treat COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think all of us have been touched by the pandemic and the stress it's put on our healthcare system, the stress it's put on families, and just all of our interactions. And so I do think that you're seeing frustrations and stress come out in a lot of different ways. That's unfortunate and troubling. And a lot of it has been coming out against healthcare workers. And I think what was particularly troubling to me is you have frontline healthcare workers that we know are stressed, that we know are understaffed. And we had, instead of Republican officials figuring out a way to support the situation, we had, threats of both political and legal ramifications made against the hospital and maybe individual healthcare workers. We're not sure because we don't have much on the hands-on interactions with bedside staff. But, in terms of I think that we need to, you're going to be sorry you asked, Holly. I think we need to better resource our frontline healthcare folks, and we haven't been doing that. And we have an opportunity to do that with federal dollars that are flowing into the state. If we're able to better resource folks, we can get better information to families that are frustrated and scared about whether they get to visit their family member, what kind of services they're providing, and if we get more help in to hospitals, we can have that outward facing information and sort of bedside care look better, and I think that it's a different conversation, and a lot of you guys have been part of that conversation, but I think we're frustrated that we're not putting resources in certain places, and we can't engage in magic to change a stressful situation where people are overworked and understaffed and the system stressed, but we can certainly put resources towards improving it, and we have been doing that.
In terms of the community caretaker provision, do you think that this is an appropriate way to use that provision? I mean, they're citing this as the reason the trooper was dispatched.
No, I mean, it's the fifth different reason.
Yeah, because the caretaker is really an inappropriate use in this situation. It's really about search and seizure. So if you've got a car alongside the road and you go up to the car, the patrol officer or the law enforcement agent goes up to the car and they see a dead body, somebody in distress, they're supposed to respond immediately. That's not what this situation was. This is a dispatch from a chain of command to an inappropriate jurisdictional situation. And so it has changed, if you recall. I mean, we first had the duty to act. Well, that's also an immediacy situation where if you see something, if you're a law enforcement guy and you're in the bank and you're depositing money and somebody's robbing the bank, you have a duty to act because it's within your ability to do so as a law enforcement agent. So I just want to keep saying that this is a problem with the chain of command. This is not a problem with that law enforcement person who responded appropriately when asked to do so, went and did what she was asked to do, and then took that through the appropriate jurisdiction with the county attorney. She understood her jurisdiction and she applied her knowledge of the statute appropriately in this situation and with professionalism. And I will continue to say that the law enforcement woman in this situation did a great job and responded exactly as she should have.
Yeah, and Holly, I'll just, I think that it's a misapplication of the statute, and it's, and it's just another example of a revisionist explanation of the decisions that were made and why, from my view.
Okay, Matt, we'll go to you next.
Thanks. I don't mean to prolong things, but I was just reading the special counsel law for the first time. I'm a little late to the party on this bill, and it reads that that she's hired by and answers to the president and the speaker. What recourse do you have if they tell her don't provide any additional information? Do you have any recourse?
No, I mean, I think that we've been working with the speaker and the president on this. I think we can go to them again and explain, what we want and why we want it. But yeah, ultimately, both Blaisdell and Galt have the authority to direct her actions, and we understand that.
And I would like to point out that we brought our concerns to them, and they felt that they were strong enough to take forward. So, to have the response that was there that essentially says, that this was unnecessary and pointing fingers in our direction when we asked for them to act and they acted because they felt that it was a good use of the special counsel's abilities. I just want to point out that this is an effort by legislative leadership to find out what's happening in this situation and whether or not there are necessary steps that the legislature needs to take to make sure that our oversight is strengthened.
All right. I don't see any other hands up, but did anybody have any more questions they wanted to hop in with before we wrap up? Okay, well, if anybody has any follow-up, feel free to reach out to me or George or Representative Abbott or Senator Cohenour. We'll send out a recording. And if you need anything else, just let us know. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks a lot, you guys. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, thanks so.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas.
Thank you.